from Virginia rise.
Yeah, I would like to offer my amendment, call up my amendment to desk.
The clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment number 2, printed in House Report 110-136, offered by Mr. Tom Davis of Virginia.
Pursuant to House Resolution 382, the gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Davis, and a member opposed, each will control 5 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Virginia.
Thank you. I yield myself such time as I may consume. My amendment will remove from this legislation a very dangerous and costly restriction on the government's ability to obtain protective gear, apparel, and other materials that are critical to those charged with protecting our nations. Is 9/11 already such a distant memory that we're willing to sacrifice the safety of those protecting our country in order to delude ourselves into believing that we're saving jobs? Are there members of this House who believe we should not be doing everything that we can to make sure that our customs officers, our border patrol agents, our air marshals have the best protective gear, the best bulletproof vests, the best body armor available in the world when we go out and purchase this for them? Wherever it is made, we want them to have the best. Make no mistake about it, a vote against my amendment is a vote to jeopardize safety and security of the agents and officers protecting our country by restricting the sourcing and our ability to buy the best available around the globe. What's more, Section 407 limits competition, which ends up driving up taxpayer costs, and it limits the Homeland Security Department's ability to obtain the best products to protect our homeland. Members should not be conned into thinking that domestic source restrictions, quote, buy America, saves jobs. Time and time again, these short-sighted restrictions have ended up costing us more American jobs than they save, as our trading partners then take retaliatory action against American-made goods and services that we sell abroad. And we should remember, we're only 4% of the world's consumers here in the United States. Pretty soon, with these kind of source restrictions on what America can buy and sell, we're going to be selling only to ourselves. Restrictions such as these jeopardize national security, does not make available to us the most modern technologies, the best body armor, the best bulletproof vests in the world. The highest technology available in the world for ID cards could be eliminated under this amendment. It hamstrings market competition by eliminating who can bid on these contracts. It leads to higher prices and lower quality goods and services, and it wastes precious taxpayer dollars. I think by supporting Homeland Security, you should support our amendment to strike Section 407, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Balance of his time. For what purpose does the gentleman from North Carolina rise?
Mr. Speaker, I rise in opposition to the gentleman's
amendment. Recognized for 5 minutes.
I thank the gentleman. I rise in opposition to this amendment because Section 407 that my colleague wants to strike has one purpose: to strengthen our national security. It's a common sense provision that says that sensitive materials, uniforms, protective gear, badges, and identification cards should be produced and shipped only within the United States of America. It has a flexible provision that contains an exception for when materials are not available domestically of an acceptable quality or at market value, as long as the Secretary certifies that national security will be protected. He may do it. So if one of our allies makes an item of protective gear that is not available domestically, it will still be available to the department. Additionally, it does not apply to purchases made outside the United States for use outside the United States. So if an agent or officer is overseas and needs a bulletproof vest or other pieces of protective gear quickly, he or she can get it. Our national security could be compromised if terrorists, smugglers, or other would-be counterfeiters had ready access to the Department of Homeland Security's uniforms, protective gear, or ID cards. The provision this amendment would remove will reduce the opportunity for terrorists or others with bad intentions to pose as Homeland Security officials or officers. It is not uncommon for cargo to be hijacked or lost, particularly in the staging areas at our nation's ports of entry. the potential theft of uniforms, badges, or ID cards by the truckload poses a clear threat. In years past, there have been several reports on the overseas manufacture of uniforms for the Department of Homeland Security's operational components. Indeed, most Americans would be shocked to learn that Border Patrol uniforms have been manufactured in Mexico and other countries. This ongoing practice raises legitimate security concerns, not only at the border, but all across this country, which is what this provision addresses. For that reason, I oppose this amendment, and I urge my colleagues to join me in rejecting it, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves the balance of his time. The gentleman from Virginia.
How much time do I have remaining?
The gentleman from Virginia has 2.5 minutes remaining.
I yield myself such time as I may consume. One of the difficulties in our procurement system today in government is that we try to reach too many competing policy goals in the way that we buy goods and services. When we use taxpayer dollars, when we take hard-earned money from our taxpayers and the government needs a good or a service, our purpose ought to be to buy the best good and the best service and get the best value for our tax dollars, period. That's what we do when we buy our cars. That's what we do when we add additions to our home. The government should be subject to the same rules and regulations. In this particular case, there's no safety issue over where these materials may be made. That's a subterfuge. What this is an attempt to try to protect American jobs in some ways, and of course the end result is you lose them in others. But by reaching these competing goals in procurement through set-asides where we exclude parts of the economic system from bidding, this Buy America language is another effort to restrict competition, we end up driving up costs for the taxpayers. We don't make use many times of the best technology, although there is catch-all language in this and other Buy America languages that allows the Secretary to certify certain things. In point of fact, they don't work. They're reluctant to do that, and you end up many times with higher costing goods of the same order that reduces our ability to use taxpayer dollars wisely. In a global economy, American taxpayers should get the benefit of the best value when we go out and use our dollars to buy goods and services. Restrictions on competition like this means that tax dollars are limited in their choices. Fewer choices means inferior products. It means greater costs. It means less competition. Section 407 of this legislation restricts competition, and it should be restricted. My amendment is endorsed by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, by the Information Technology Association of America as well, and I think every taxpayer ought to be concerned about how their taxpayers are spent. And I would reserve, I will yield back the balance of my time and urge the adoption of the amendment. And I appreciate the gentleman from North Carolina and his position in the area that he represents, but I just don't think these